we want to start on time. For those of you who are on time, thank you so much for joining. C.A.R.P. Nova Scotia is pleased to offer you this opportunity to meet Marie-Claire Chartrand and benefit by her tremendous knowledge in this area, a subject that is very difficult for us often as individuals to understand and be clear about. So welcome everybody. Glad to have you here. I'm Bill Van Gorder. I'm the past chair of C.A.R.P. Nova Scotia and the Chief Operating Officer now for C.A.R.P. Nationally, but still very pleased to be working out of my Halifax office and working with the C.A.R.P. chapter here, and Ron Swan, our chair, and Paula Wedge, vice chair of the Nova Scotia chapter. And I urge any of you who are not C.A.R.P. members, please consider joining. It's very easy to join C.A.R.P. You go to carp.ca. It's that simple, C.A.R.P.ca, and go to join, which is right on the home screen. A membership in C.A.R.P. is only $15 a year, but certainly the more members we have, the more we're able to do our advocacy across the country and to produce meetings such as this. I'm just pausing to admit a few more people. So we're going to get right on with the webinar now. Marie-Claire Chartrand is a person who has been offering a service of navigating the not always easy to understand resources that are available in Nova Scotia as we plan what we're going to do next in our lives. We're very pleased to have Marie-Claire with us today, and I'm going to invite her to join in just a moment. I'm going to have to unmute her though, because if she...
I think
that, yeah, you are unmuted, Marie-Claire. Very good. And we'll just ask everybody if you will turn off your cameras and suggest that you put your view into speaker mode, and you'll be able to get Marie-Claire. So Marie-Claire, will you please continue to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. Marie-Claire, my background is I'm a licensed social worker and a certified elder mediator. I have a business called Greywave Senior Care Consulting, and I've worked in the sector working with older adult seniors for pretty much my entire career, a little over 30 years, and primarily with continuing care. During my time with them, finding that there was a lack of ability to provide other kinds of guidance around what was available in the private sector for folks. And that there was definitely a need to help folks navigate and figure out what was available out there, what to do for themselves, or a lot of times the adult children, what to do for mom and dad. So I've been providing these presentations to different community groups to give you a bit of an idea of what's out there. Today's presentation is an overview of primarily two things: what's available in home care and what's available in assisted living or long-term care. And in both of those scenarios, what's available privately and what's available through continuing care. So I'm going to go through the home care part first, and then have a little break for questions around that, and then do the long-term care bit and have some time for questions there. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And how's that? Am I there, Bill?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So that is me. All right. So we're going to talk, as I said, about home care, and let me get my pointer going here. What is available for folks at home and what is available for folks if they're moving from home and either going to assisted living or long-term care. So both under the provincial program, which is all through continuing care. It's the same program throughout the entire province. And what's available in the private sector. So stuff you can just go out and buy without going through the continuing care system. So we'll talk about home care first. And in home care, what is available in the provincial program? Under continuing care, they have various programs. What I want to talk about today is what's available for home care or a home support worker under their program. So under their program, home care worker, they're called continuing care assistants. It's a standard that they have to meet, training that they have to have to be able to provide home care services or home support services in a person's home. And the type of home support services that they are able to give is for housekeeping. And for them, and when I talk about the private care, you'll see the differences in what is offered in home support services in the private sector versus what's offered in continuing care. So for continuing care, housekeeping is usually 2 hours every 2 weeks. That's what you would be allotted. What they do is primarily, there's a standard types of things that they can assist with. They do the floors, they vacuum, wash the floors, they'll clean your bathroom, kitchen services, and they'll change your bed. That's primarily the housekeeping. They will do laundry. There's a standard amount of time for laundry allotted to that as well. Lots of things they don't do. They don't do dusting unless you have a severe allergy. They don't do any moving of the furniture. Like if you're gonna vacuum under the furniture, they don't do that. They don't deal with any cat litter. So you'll see in the private sector, you'll have more freedom to choose what you're going to want them to be doing. So housekeeping is, you can get hours allotted for that. You can get hours allotted for personal care. So personal care is assistance with bathing or showering. It's assistance with getting dressed. Some folks need help every morning, getting up, getting dressed. Bathing hours that are allotted are normally 1 hour a week. That's the allotted time for a shower, unless you have issues with incontinence, and then you can have that as frequently as daily. Toileting, as I mentioned, if there's issues with incontinence or somebody who needs assistance to toilet, care could be allotted more times during the run of the day. The other part, so we had housekeeping, personal care they're allowed to do, and meals or meal preparation. Primarily with meals, they do different aspects and they'll allot times depending on what your needs are. So for some, it's simply if you can heat and serve a meal yourself, then they don't allot time for a worker to do that. They would expect you to use pre-made meals or delivered meals like VON, frozen favorites, Meals on Wheels, and now there's all kinds of skip the dishes and those types of things. So if a person is able to heat and serve their meal themselves, they don't usually allot time for a worker to prepare meals. If they're not able to do that, then they do provide time for meal preparation. And for some folks, that could be daily. And for some folks, it could be twice a day or 3 times a day. Often those times that are allotted for that are combined with other services. So you could have somebody coming in to provide a meal who's also going to provide personal care, who's also going to provide some housekeeping during that time. or respite. So respite is the sort of fourth category that they allot time for. So respite is a break for the caregiver. And it's normally allotment is about 10 hours a week, but during COVID now, and with the push to try to maintain people at home longer, respite hours are a little more flexible, and they very much may allot more time than the 10 hours a week. It's only for people who cannot be left alone, and continuing care have some standards around what does that mean. It means, would the person be safe if they were left alone, they weren't wandering, they could get up and use the washroom independently, if they needed to take medications during while you're away, could they take those medications independently? If there was an emergency, would they know how to respond? So that's when they allot time for home support for respite hours. The number of hours in total that they will allot a person is 100 hours a month, which kind of comes to about 3.5 hours a day. They don't allot you that full 100 hours automatically. It's going to depend on your needs. It's going to depend on their assessment. So the cost. So the cost of home care with the provincial program is based on your income. And if your income and you're single, if your income is under the 22,125, there is no fee. If you're a couple and your income is under the 37,000, there is no fee for home care. If your income is above that, then the fee is $12.45 an hour. So it's still a subsidized rate. And there is still, with that, there is a maximum amount that you would pay per month. And the maximum, it depends how high your income is above that, those two thresholds. And most people pay nothing, or they pay $125 a month maximum. So say your income as a couple was 40,000, no matter how many hours you're having coming into your home, the most you would pay is $125. And in the highest income category, the most you would pay is $625 a month. So that's your basic home care through continuing care. How you apply for those programs, you call, it's one number, it's the 1-800 number for continuing care. You will speak with an intake worker who will take basic information from you. You don't need a referral from anyone. You can just call yourself, have a health card number on hand, and they will ask you, what is it you're looking for, what program? And if it's home care and help with personal care, they will assign you to a care coordinator. And then that care coordinator will come to your home, do an assessment, and determine how many hours you're eligible for and what your fee is. Okay, so next we're going to talk still home care and the private sector. So under the private sector, home care, the difference is you can apply to any company. It's not even applying, it's calling and shopping around, choosing a company that provides home care or home support workers. And what I have found is that for folks who do have funds that can afford private sector, they tend to prefer that because they get to choose which company. With continuing care, they have 5 or 6 companies that are RFPs that are contracted, and you'll get one of those and you'll have no option but what is provided there. You often don't you won't have the option of what worker comes, of consistency with workers. Often the schedule is not what you may prefer. If you wanted somebody there every morning, say at 8 o'clock, it's unlikely that continuing care is going to be able to provide a consistent person with a consistent schedule who's able to meet the schedule that you're looking for. So with a private company, they're more likely able to do that. They're also able to do things that continuing care can't, like errands, like taking your loved one out for a drive, you know, getting your groceries for you. There's no issues around pets. You just make sure you have a worker that's okay with pets. They'll walk your dog. If you want to have 3 hours of somebody just cleaning your house, then they will provide that. So you kind of get to decide what it is you want that person to be doing, and how often you want them, and what schedule you want them at. So the costs of that, with most companies, they range between $25 and $30 an hour. In the past year or so, I've been finding that the $30 is kind of creeping up. It's a bit over that at times, but $25 to $30 an hour. With these companies, most will have well, they all do. They have a minimum amount of time that you have to have the worker. So they won't come for an hour. It's a 3-hour minimum. So if you're hiring them, it's a 3-hour minimum. So you're looking at $90 to $100 each time they come to visit and provide care. For live-in care, so I'll say with the hourly rate, you know, you can hire somebody for 8 hours a day if you'd like, 12 hours a day. You get to decide that if you can pay it. A live-in care, people will often hear the term the Newfoundland ladies. So live-in care is somebody who comes, they're usually paired up, 2 people. They'll come 1 week on, or 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So the cost of having somebody come live in is between $6,000 and $8,000 a month. It varies by company, it varies by arrangements that are made. The expectation is that they have a room of their own to stay in, that they are able to sleep during the night. And their skills and abilities vary. Some simply are there for companionship. Some, I've seen some folks who manage people in end of life as well. So it's kind of what you're looking for and who you're hiring, making sure that they have the skills to meet the needs that you have. The other option is 24-hour care. This may scare you. So 24-hour care is essentially paying for a worker to be awake day and night. And so the cost of that is about $600 a day. Not many people need that or can afford to pay that. Usually, yeah, I don't see this often, people needing that level of care. I just throw it out so you have an idea of the cost compared to looking at long-term care. Okay, so I want to do a small break here because that's before I move into long-term care or moving out. And I know I'm running through this a bit quickly, and I want to give people the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. So just think if I stop share.
And we will take questions on the chat. So if you want to type your questions into the chat, I'll be glad to repeat them to Marie-Claire.
Yeah.
Marie-Claire, you or I should sing at this point for a little interval music while we're waiting.
Yeah.
We have a question. Does dementia care require anything special?
Does it require anything special? Well, you would want people to have, you're going to get the same home care worker, regardless of whether you have dementia or not, or the person they're caring for has dementia or not. The hope is that staff who are coming have some training in dementia care. And they should. It's very specialized dementia care, and knowing how to manage somebody with dementia is hugely important. And that tends to be the primary reason why people prefer to go to a private home care company, because consistency is important, especially with people with dementia. So a different person showing up each time is very upsetting to that person with dementia. And it's often not helpful to the family member, because they have to almost orientate and train the person every time they come in to say, you know, John likes to eat this. John likes to have his bath this way. And yeah.
Okay, another question. We have a number of them. Is provincial home care available for people temporarily incapacitated by accidental injury?
Yes, yes. It's not. Is that the same question? Does somebody have? Okay, wait. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's incapacitated or if it's temporary or not. If it's a motor vehicle accident or workers' compensation, those types of things, I think that continuing care will be asking you to go to workers' comp for coverage, or to go to the insurance. It's a section 22 or section, I forget the name of the section, but yeah.
Okay, another question.
Yeah.
Is I have heard that with the expansion of home care, there's a long wait list for in-home care via continuing care and maybe even privately. There are too few workers. Is this true?
Yes, there are too few workers. There are wait lists. It varies across the province, and it varies even here in Halifax, what area you live in. St. Margaret's Bay is notorious for not having workers to go out that way. A lot of the home care workers in the city travel by bus, or if they travel by car, they don't want to drive out that far. So it varies. In terms of private companies, I haven't heard that there's a shortage, that you have to wait list, that you have to wait for to get care started. I saw Brittany Kehoe is on the call here today, and she's with Home Instead. She's I'd certainly welcome any words from Brittany. Home Instead is one of the local companies here in Halifax. What does tend to happen is if you have a worker scheduled to come in, and that worker is sick, has a sick call, or something happens, they're in a car accident or something, companies have a hard time to replace that worker to show up for the shift. Right. And because they don't really have sort of I was thinking of the analogy of a baseball. They don't have a bunch of people just sitting on the sidelines waiting in case there's a cancellation.
Another question. I have recently moved back to Nova Scotia. I care for my mother that has dementia. Do I have to wait for her MSI number to apply for respite care?
If your mom just arrived today.
No, I think she just arrived, the caregiver.
Well, no. Well, it's the mother who would be the client.
Yes,
so
and the
mother is eligible now. And if so no, she doesn't have. the caregiver does not have to wait because she's not the client.
Right. The mother was already here, so she should be eligible right away.
Yeah.
Good.
And if mother had just arrived today, she can call today to MSI, get an MSI number. They'll give you the number, temporary number over the phone, and you can apply today to continuing care. What you can't get is long-term care upon arrival. That takes 3 months before you're eligible to apply for long-term care.
Okay. There's one answer from our comment from Brittany from she says at home instead we can offer start very quickly. We met with a client this morning and we'll be starting care for him tomorrow. We also see emergency situations where people need to start same day, and we always work our hardest to make that possible. So that's from Brittany at home instead. One more question and we'll let you get back to your presentation. Really more of a comment that you may want to comment on and then move into your presentation. But Carol says, generally the idea of at-home care in any area outside of Halifax Metro is a farce. Folks in rural areas have lower incomes and there are too few workers. Mm-hmm.
Certainly in the private sector, but in the continuing care sector, I do believe that there's only some areas within the province that have shortages of workers and have wait lists for home care. I'm not sure of the latest updates, but the provincial program certainly has workers throughout the province, rural or not. So, and it's not, you know, if your income is low, you're not paying a fee for those home care workers.
Okay, thank you, Marie-Claire. Why don't you go on with the presentation and we'll take more questions at the later on.
Okay. Box. All right. All right. So for looking at assisted living or moving out of your home, what are the options for moving out if you're moving out because you require care? The provincial program through continuing care, so it's that same number you would be applying for home care, the 1-800 number. That's where the continuing care, long-term care programs are through. So there's basically, you know, the language around all of this gets very confusing, but essentially there's private and public, and the public is continuing care. In the continuing care sector, there are two basic levels of care. RCF, which stands for Residential Care Facility, which is kind of the equivalent of assisted living in the private sector, and nursing homes. So to apply, to get into any of those provincially licensed facilities, there's only one way in, and that is through continuing care. Whoops, a little fast. So the cost of those facilities, let me back up. I'll just tell you a bit more about this. So the two levels of care, RCF, there tend to be fewer RCF beds available. We call them beds in the sector because it's fairly light care. And if your care is that light, you're usually able to manage at home. For a person in a residential care, they are usually mobile. They might need a walker. You have to manage your own incontinence if you have any. You have to be able to self-evacuate if there's an emergency. Medications, if you're diabetic, you'd have to be able to manage your own insulin. So what's provided in one of these facilities is mainly supervision, 3 meals a day, some light assistance with personal care, if you needed a bit of assistance dressing, if you needed assistance with the shower. Nursing home care, there is 2 levels within that, but it's nursing home 1, nursing home 2 levels of care, but essentially every nursing home provides both of those levels. Most folks going into long-term care now under continuing care have some form of cognitive impairment. I think the average is 85 or 90% have some form of cognitive impairment, usually significant mobility issues, often wheelchair dependent, often incontinent. The average age in long-term care is 85 plus, and to be eligible for any of these, you do go through an assessment with continuing care, and you will have to demonstrate that you have accessed all services possible to help maintain yourself at home. I know there'll be questions about wait lists and that, but I'll hold those until the end. So cost of these, the most you would pay is $3,300 a month. So it's based on a daily rate. The RCF rate is a lot lower, but nursing home rate is $107.75 per day. That is the most you would pay. It is based on your income. So many folks who are lower income certainly can't afford the $3,300 a day. So what they do is they look at 85% of your income to a maximum of the 3,300. So somebody who's lower income essentially is left with $300 a month to pay for things that are not covered under the nursing home. And those are transportation. So if you have an ambulance bill, you need a taxi somewhere, hearing aids, dental work, co-pays for medication, foot care, haircuts, your clothes, glasses, teeth. Those are your basics. If you're a couple, so that's the minimal retained is 15%. If you are a couple, what they do is they combine your incomes, and the person who is staying at home keeps 60% of the income. The person who is going into care, they take that 40% and they do the same formula that they did for the single person. So they look at 85% of that 40%. Okay. So that was long-term care in the continuing care sector and long-term care in the private sector. So lots of language for this, assisted living, retirement living, independent living. If you're in the metro area, the places we're talking about are the bigger places are Parkland at the lakes, the Parklands. They have 3 different campuses, and not only in metro, they have campuses across the province, some in the valley, some in Cape Breton. The Parklands or the Shanix facilities, the Berkeleys. In the city, there's Melville that's owned by GEM. They have a place down in Yarmouth now as well. And then there are smaller places as well, boarding houses. They tend to be like a house that they've organized maybe 3 people to live there to provide care. So the lighter care end of assisted living, retirement living, and some of these places offer up to full care or like nursing home type care. What they offer depends on where you're at, what package you buy, what is offered in that particular building. Some some like the Shanix campuses have various buildings that offer different levels of care. And you usually buy a package of some sort. So they pretty much all cover housekeeping and laundry. Medication management could be part of the package you buy, or it could be an add-on that you're paying more for. They offer meals. Some is 1 meal a day, some is full 3 meals a day, depends on the package, depends on the place. And personal care, again, it depends on the package, depends on the place. They range in having a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom to a suite. Depends on the facility and what they have available. The amount of personal care, again, is going to depend on the package. Some of these places, well, not some, if you're purchasing a package from them and it's not enough home support, it's not enough personal care, you can add from continuing care. So say you're in, let's just use Shanix, Parkland, Clayton Park, and you're in one of their buildings that is independent living, and you get 1 meal a day there, and no personal care is offered in that package in that building. You can hire through continuing care and have help coming in there at the continuing care rate. You can also hire from Shanix to they have their own staff that you can hire for. So the cost of that ranges in the lighter assisted living, so from the 1 meal a day to the 3 meals a day with a bit of care, it ranges between 3,600 and 6,000. That's a ballpark. And if you're looking at full nursing care, that would be pretty similar to what you would get in a continuing care facility. It runs between 8,000 and 10,000 a month. The difference between application process for here, for any of these, and continuing care, is this in a way is kind of looking, they don't have the same assessment. There's no wait list. I'll retract that. There could, because now there is a wait list, because most of these facilities are quite full, but the wait list is much different. For here, if you apply directly to the facility, and if they have space available, they do an assessment to make sure that they have you in the right level of care, and that they're able to provide the care that you need in that, if you're going to go to independent living, they want you to be independent. So there's a form that the physician fills out. And essentially, if they have a space, you sign the lease and you're in. So it's not the same kind of assessment that you have to go through for continuing care. If you move to one of these and you need that kind of care, you still can apply for continuing care. Some people are on the list for continuing care and can't wait anymore, so they're staying in some of these facilities while they're waiting for a spot in continuing care. I'm just debating whether to talk about some of the other programs now, or I think I'll stop and I'll answer some questions around the long-term care first, and then if we have time, I'll go to some of the other programs.
All right, we have a question. So asking when you're talking to these services, what sort of questions should one ask about dementia care?
I guess I'm wondering if you're talking private, or I guess it wouldn't matter whether it's private or
talking both. Yes.
Both. What things should you look for? Well, I'm thinking in the private sector, there are only so many facilities that are really geared to somebody with, moderate to advanced dementia. So you want to see, do they have, trained staff to manage people with dementia? I think overall it's kind of a bigger kit. Yeah, I hate to say, you have to assume that people are trained in dementia care, in long-term care, if they're working there, since 85% of the folks in there have some form of dementia. I'm not saying they all do. So you're not going to be able to go in and ask, is everybody trained in dementia care? There are some facilities that have mixed population, meaning some folks with dementia and some folks without dementia. That's less and less. Now it tends to be they're divided based on what level of security they need. So if you're somebody with dementia who is at risk of what they call elopement, they're trying to leave, then they need to be in a facility that has some security. Either the door to the unit is locked. For some, that's what they need. For some, it has to be a building that the front door has more security. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Someone asked, can you say something about the financial impact of tax relief on care?
Tax relief. The only thing I know around taxes is that you can apply for the disability tax credit. And if you're a caregiver, you can apply for the caregiver tax, what, I forgot the word, disability tax credit, caregiver tax credit as well. You can, under medical expenses, you can claim the long-term care, you can claim your personal care workers that you're hiring, home care. So you can claim a lot under your medical expenses.
Yeah, thank you. How does the wait list work? Should you wait until you need it, or do you have to need it before you get on the list? What do you do in the meantime while you're waiting? Get home care until a place opens?
Yeah. So the long-term care wait list with continuing care, you definitely have to get home care before, if you definitely have to get home care of some sort before applying for long-term care. So if you're in the continuing care system and getting home care, the care coordinator that is assigned to you is somebody you should be chatting with about when it is you should apply for long-term care. You can't wait until you absolutely need it. The wait lists pre-COVID in the metro area ran anywhere from 4 months to 5 years for the wait list. So at the moment, people who are waiting for long-term care from home are not being admitted. The only folks being admitted to long-term care are people from hospital and people who are in a crisis situation at home or under adult protection. So pre-COVID, I would have said, if you have an illness that is like dementia, that will be progressing and declining, then you should be looking at about 6 months to a year, predicting that this is when I'm not going to be able to manage care at home anymore. And then you're talking to the care coordinator about applying for long-term care.
Good, thank you. Does a client still pick their top 3 choices for a facility upon application, and/or is there a mileage circle choice, i.e. you live in Halifax and home is in Truro, for instance?
Yeah. So you can choose as many facilities or as few as you like. You can pick 1 or you can pick 5. You have to choose at least 1, which is called your preferred. So if you have 3, you still have to pick 1 as your top choice. This is where I ultimately like to be, preferred choice. you also have to choose your community. So whether that's Halifax, Sackville, it makes a difference between Halifax and Sackville, or Dartmouth, or Sydney, or Yarmouth. The 100-kilometer rule applies when you're in hospital and waiting for long-term care. So from hospital, you still have your, say, your 3 choices or your 4 choices. From hospital, you must accept the first suitable bed that is available within 100 kilometers of your chosen community. And if the one you go to is not one of your 4 choices, you still have to go to that one, and you wait for one of these from that facility. So if they call you and they say, you've been waiting here, and they say, this one here is available, do you want to move? Well, you can say yes. And then they will likely, I think then you would wait at that one for your first choice. So, yeah. And you can always ask to move at any point in time. You can always ask to move. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop there.
Here's a question that people are running into more and more as we live longer. It's how difficult is it to transfer from a private nursing home, i.e. plus or minus $8,000 a month, to a provincially funded nursing home because of financial consideration, you're running out of money, for example?
Yeah. So it's not a barrier to be in a facility that you're paying $8,000 to be transferred. You get transferred based on, it's chronological. When your name is on the list, you just wait your turn for your name to come up. It happens that somebody runs out of money, and before that they've been transferred to a continuing care facility. In that case, they talk to the care coordinator, and then they become what's called an urgent placement or a community variance. And because essentially they're not going to have a place to live when the money runs out, and they have to go somewhere. In that case, that 100-kilometer rule becomes, you have to accept the first available bed within the 100 kilometers at that point. So what you lose out on is your choice of facility. And then even so, you will get transferred if your money runs out. And sometimes it's a crapshoot of what happens to be available on the day that they say you're now a community variance. So you may luck out and end up in the facility that you want, that was on your one of your top choices, or you may end up someplace where, from Halifax, you may end up in Windsor is covered from Halifax, and Eastern Shore, the Birches, that kind of place.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll move back to your presentation before any more questions. There is a comment that's worth repeating, I think, and that is one of our viewers says that there are companies in the community that provide physiotherapy services at home, the outskirts of this area, places like Safe at Home and Physio Care at Home, that will help get clients set up with bathroom, bedroom equipment, work toward independence while they wait for the other services that you're talking about today.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Okay, what do we got? Some of the other provincial programs. So programs with continuing care, they offer nursing services through VON. They tend to do things like dressing changes, medications, diabetic teaching, IV therapy. There's no charge for their services, and it's set up through continuing care. You need a physician to write a physician's order to provide that care. No wait list for that. It's usually pretty quick to set up. One of the programs through continuing care is called the supportive care program. This offers $500 a month. During COVID, it has been $1,000 a month for folks who have dementia or an acquired brain injury is the other category from like a stroke. It offers that money so you can buy care. So if you're in a part of the, well, people use it for different reasons to buy care, but you can spend the money on the same kind of home care services that continuing care would offer. So I could hire Home Instead to come in and provide respite, provide personal care for mom or dad, and spend that $500 or $1,000 a month on that. I can't spend it on other things like snow removal or massage or supplies. You have to spend it. You have to spend it on care, on home care. So it's the housekeeping, personal care, respite, and meals. It's not income tested. The sticking piece is that the person has to have cognitive deficits and a dementia diagnosis. Caregiver benefit pays the caregiver $400 a month. This is income tested. You have your income of the patient has to be under 22,125. If their income is under that, you're providing care for that person. The care has to be a significant, there's a amount of care, and it's 20 hours a week, I think it is. And the client, when they're assessed, have to score a certain amount in their assessment. So usually, it's usually people who have difficulty with mobility. You know, they might need help getting up from a chair. They usually some incontinence. So it's for folks with a fair amount of care. So that's $400 a month. You don't have to provide, with the supportive care, you have to supply receipts every 3 months showing how you've spent the money. Caregiver benefit, you don't. Facility respite is nursing home beds where that are put aside for sending your loved one to give you a break. You're eligible for 60 days in a year. There are only certain facilities that offer it. You have to apply through continuing care to get that. The cost per day is about $40 for that. They're closed at the moment due to COVID. When they're not closed, you kind of have to book it ahead, almost like a hotel room. And you say, here's my 2 weeks this summer. I want to have a break. And so other programs and services that aren't through continuing care that could help you with different things. So if you have somebody who's a veteran, definitely call Veterans Affairs Canada and get registered with them. Their process is not fast, but if you're eligible for any of their programs, they're excellent. A lot more support and funding from paying for a home care worker to come in. Sometimes they'll bill directly. Occupational therapists coming in, purchasing equipment, physiotherapists coming in. So great resource if you have it, or if you're RCMP as well. They have different service packages that they have. Societies, if you have Parkinson's, contacting the Parkinson's Society, the Cancer Society, ALS Society, Huntington's, all those societies often will offer different kinds of support groups, the Alzheimer's Society, of course. So often, you know, especially with the Alzheimer's Society, the number one key thing for people who are taking care of somebody with dementia is education and understanding the disease. It's the biggest thing I think that people need to need to do. So some of these societies sometimes have equipment, they have different funding pockets as well, and they usually have somebody in there who can help you navigate some things. Caregivers Nova Scotia, shout out to Therese Henman, who's on here, who's new to Caregivers Nova Scotia. Provincial program, free. They offer support groups. Their website is one of the few that will list some of the private side of services. Yeah, excellent resource. I called them myself yesterday to find some resources. 211, either on the phone. They are kind of like librarians of services. So you can call them, you can email them, you can look them up online as 211. So if you're looking for a program, or you're looking for housing, you're looking for, it's all the government programs that are available. And if you call them, they're often quite good at tracking down information that you're looking for. MSI, odd questions. And that is it for the presentation. So we'll do a few more questions. I think we might have time for. How are we doing? Stop share.
Sorry, I was muted. I said we do
Okay.
have time if people would like to write in a few more questions. We do have one here. It says, does the VON provide a day program for dementia patients? My mother went to the VON Day Center in Trenton on 2 days per week from 9 to 3:30 and gave her some social and activity time, respite time for me as her caregiver.
Yeah, so VON do offer different programs, day programs throughout the province. I don't know if they're all dementia related. They're all closed because of COVID at the moment, but there are programs you know, I think you just contact your local VON office and they can tell you what's available. 211 would tell you as well. So would Caregivers Nova Scotia. Day programs in Halifax, Northwood offers several day programs specifically for folks with dementia. You can get a half day, you can get a full day, you could go once a week, 3 times, 5 days a week. Meal is included at lunchtime. They're excellent programs. Sackville, anyway, they have, I think, 4 different sites. Good,
thank you. Another question, I am intermittent caregiver to sister who presently lives on her own 3.5 hours away. She's got disabilities, cognitive issues, cancer treatment. I travel, spend 8 to 10 days per month with her to handle her needs. Am I able to apply to RCF in my area to have her move closer to me? Does she have to stay within her own area, which is HRM?
Right. So yes, she can apply, and if you would then put her community of choice wherever you're living. So 100 kilometers from whatever town you're in or city you're in.
Okay. Yeah. And somebody thanking you, Marie Claire. The session was so valuable. Thank you for giving us this information. What a great way to spend an hour. Thanks so much. So nice. I think people are winding down. We're on the hour and the time. I do want to let everybody know that this presentation has been recorded. It will be available on the C.A.R.P website, also links to the C.A.R.P Facebook pages, and all of you who signed up for the presentation will get an email with that link, so you'll be able to see it yourself or share it with friends and family who need to have the same information. We urge you also to go to our website, carp.ca or carpnovascotia.ca, and join C.A.R.P. The more people we have as members, the more we're able to offer programs like this. We have almost 10,000 members in Nova Scotia, about 330,000 across the country. But the more we have, the more our voice will be heard. long-term care, and as a part of the long-term care continuum, home care is a major priority for C.A.R.P, both in Nova Scotia and nationally for C.A.R.P. If you're interested in learning more about our advocacy around long-term care and home care, and perhaps changes in some of the services that Marie-Claire has outlined, please go to our website or to our page, join with us in those discussions, or send us a message either through Facebook or through our C.A.R.P novascotia.ca website. Thank you very much, Marie-Claire, for coming. Your information on how to reach you is on our website, our Facebook page, but perhaps you could just repeat again for people now, if they need more information or want your more specific help, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they get in touch with me either by email or a phone call. And I'll just tell you a bit of how I work. Either we chat over the phone, we meet on Zoom, or I come to your home. I coach how to get through the next steps. I mediate between the family, sitting down and figuring out what to do about mom and dad. And I help you navigate, come up with a plan of what's going to work. So I charge one-on-one rates over the phone. My rates are $150 an hour to do that kind of consulting. If I come to your home and do an assessment and we troubleshoot through a care plan, I charge $250 for that initial assessment. So I work in a variety of ways with families, but essentially it's coaching and navigating through this.
And I can certainly tell you from personal experience that that investment is well worth it in terms of time and money saved later on. Yep. So thank you very much, Marie-Claire. Thank you all 51 of you who stayed on the line for the entire presentation. And please watch our C.A.R.P website, our C.A.R.P Facebook page for further webinars coming up over the next few months. Thank you, and be well, stay safe, everybody.
See you, Bill.
Thanks, Marie.